Hello there friends and followers, and welcome to this X-Plane 11 video. Today we are going to be conducting a review of the recently updated Magknight Boeing 787. It is worthwhile mentioning that the Magknight project has been under constant developments and updates bringing new improvements to the model. A word of commendation to the developers for their persistence and commitment to the project. It is also worthwhile mentioning that the support that they provide through their Discord channel for the project is absolutely outstanding. The Magknight Boeing 787 has received several updates since my last review. However, I felt that version 1.6 warrants another review here on the channel, and this is what you guys have shown interest in, and so that's exactly what we're doing today. And we're going to begin here by taking a look at the exterior 3D modeling and the texture work, and I'm very glad to see that most of the items that we pointed out in my previous review have been addressed in this version. You can see that the 3D modeling now more closely resembles the real aircraft. Definite improvement, especially in this area here. It looks kind of smoother. Better textures. You can see the details here on the windows. Of course, there is a new paint kit that has been also released for the aircraft. Overall, in terms of the exterior 3D modeling and the texture work, I believe that the Magknight has been brought a notch up in terms of the quality. I think the aircraft is pretty much resemblant now of a Boeing 787. And of course, the paint kit that has been released contains a lot more details now, really allowing livery makers to create more convincing liveries of the aircraft. You can see also that the engine modeling has been changed. It looks a lot better than what it used to be, the landing gear area. Overall, I think they've done a reasonably good job to bring the aircraft exterior 3D model and the textures to an acceptable standard. The Magknight Boeing 787 version 1.6 introduces a new 3D cockpit textures and modeling, and as you can see here, we can definitely observe the improvement over the previous versions. You can see that the panel work is a lot more convincing now. You can see also the dirt here on the screens. Overall, the 3D modeling has been improved quite a bit from previous versions. The overhead panel, in my view, has always been okay. Not much improvement in terms of the overhead panel, but I think in terms of the overall look and feel of the 3D cockpit, definitely we can see the improvements. Again, not my idea of high fidelity, but definitely an improvement over the previous version. And you can actually enjoy being in the 3D cockpit now. You can see that the modeling has been vastly improved over the previous versions. You can look at the switches here, the throttle, flaps. So all in all, this new 3D cockpit looks a lot better than all the previous versions of the Magknight Boeing 787. And I'm quite pleased to see that this aircraft is constantly receiving improvements and updates, both in terms of performance, in terms of simulation of systems, as well as the 3D modeling and the texture work. So all in all, I do commend the developers for what they've done in terms of the 3D modeling. You can see this cockpit again here, the door and the area here behind the overhead panel on the top. I think it looks reasonably okay. Again, I wouldn't say that this is a high fidelity representation of the 787. Nonetheless, it is a vastly improved version relative to the previous versions that I've seen of the aircraft. I still think that the glare shield area here needs a little more work, but it still looks pretty good and quite enjoyable. If you're flying this aircraft for the long haul, then definitely you'll be able to enjoy it. My final assessment of the overall 3D modeling and texture work, I believe it has been significantly improved over previous versions. However, I still wouldn't call the end result as a high fidelity representation of the Boeing 787. It is to an acceptable standard. However, by no means is it high fidelity, and I would still would love to see improvements made to the both the exterior and the interior modeling of this aircraft. As part of our review of this updated version of the Magknight Boeing 787, we are going to be conducting a short flight here from Pearson International in Toronto, Canada, to Chicago O'Hare Airport in the United States. The purpose of the flight is to expose the aircraft systems and see if they behave as they should, and also it will give us a chance to take a look at all the features that have been integrated into this aircraft. So without further ado, let's get started. The first thing we are going to do is we are going to start the battery. Now the sounds are, in my view, are pretty bad. Definitely the sounds for a price tag. For the price tag of this aircraft, the sounds need to be a lot better than what they are. But that's my personal view. I think that's an area where you know, the guys, the developers should focus next, is really bringing in some immersive sounds to this aircraft. All right, let's go ahead and start the APU. And while we do that, we're going to just turn on the seats and cabin utility switches on, and we're just going to wait for the APU to become available. And we're going to turn on the generators on this side here, and we're going to move up here and turn on the ADIRs. And let's see here, window heat, we're going to just turn everything on here, and we're going to turn on the hydraulics as well. And with that, we can move over here. We'll leave the fuel pump switches for the time being, and we're going to turn on the air conditioning system with the packs. There we go, and the APU is now available, and we have power to the aircraft, and all is looking good. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to enter our flight plan into the FMS or the MMFMC, however you want to call it. So we're going to go to the index here, and let's go here to, hang on one second here, RTE, okay, route menu, and we're going to go to the company route, and we're going to select this one here, which is Charlie Yankee Yankee Zulu to Kilo Oscar Romeo Delta, and that is selected, and now we have the entire flight plan loaded into the FMC. We're going to very quickly take a look at our flight plan here, our FMC, our SimBrief flight plan, beg your pardon. And you can see that the cruise level is 40,000 feet. So we're going to go to VNAV. Transition altitude is 18, that's fine. Cruise altitude is 400, and we're going to enter that here. Okay. Everything is looking good. We're going to select our departure, and the departure, according to our plan here, is going to be through runway 23 through the GOP up 3 departure. So runway 23, we're going to say next page, that's runway 23, and that's the GOP up 3 departure through the hot transition. And we're going to say execute, and then we're going to go to once again to the arrival at Chicago O'Hare, and we're going to note the windy 1 star and runway 22 right. All right, so we're going to select that. Let's see, that's the windy. Transition is going to be. Let's take a look. Looks like there is no transition. We're going to make sure here. Yep, there is no transition. And the arrival runway is going to be 22 right. So that's the transition and execute. And we're going to just go to the legs page and make sure that there is one discontinuity here. So we're going to, let me clear this first. All right, and execute. Next page, There is another discontinuity here, and execute, and then we are good. And we are going to note that there is a vector at the very beginning of the flight. So if we go to the legs page here, there is a vector to TILM. We can actually just select TILM here and execute, and that should be just fine. So we're just going to go direct instead of using the vector. All right, so now that we have this set up, we can come over here to the EFB, and we're going to go to aircraft configuration. Now, one thing I've noticed that there is an issue with this aircraft. For some reason, the performance calculator does not work in German airports. And I'm not sure if this issue is indigenous to my system or if others are having this issue as well. But the performance calculator would not work in German airports no matter what I do. So we're going to say about 63 passengers. Oh, well, we'll say 100 passengers or so. Galley, we're going to say international flight. Crew, we're going to put 4 members of crew and 7 cabin crew. Passengers were done, some cargo, and fuel. So for the fuel, we're going to just consult our flight plan here real quick. 33,140, so 33,300 is fine as a total. So 33,300, 33,400, that's perfectly fine. And then we're going to say load the aircraft, initialize flight, performance. And from performance, we are taking off runway 23. And the wind today, we can simply look at the wind here at the airport. We're going to go to details and just take a look at the wind 10. Wind is calm. All right, so we're just going to leave the wind 0 and 0. Flaps 5, everything here looks good. Calculate, and now we have our V1, V-rotate, and V2. We are looking at 4.5 units of trim. So we're going to come over here and select V2, which is 160 knots. Right, 160 knots. We're going to turn on the flight directors on both sides, and we're going to set the altitude to the final cruise altitude today of 40,000 feet. Right, 40,000 feet is set, and all is looking good now. We can increase the range here a bit so we can see the flight plan. Yeah, looks good to me. There we go. That looks good. All right. So everything's looking good. We're going to change the heading to 230 degrees, which is runway heading. 230 degrees is set. And we are pretty much now ready to start the aircraft so we can actually start the engines and taxi to the runway. All right, we are ready to start our engines. We're going to head over to the overhead panel, and we're going to start the engine or the right engine. Now, with the 787, normally you should be able to start both engines instantly, so you can start them simultaneously. So we're going to put both starters on start, and we're just going to watch the. There we go. So we do have the right engine spooling. So we're just going to give it some power, and we're going to give the left engine some power as well. And they should both start with no issues whatsoever. And that's what we're observing now. So both engines are coming up. We're going to set the auto brake to rejected takeoff. And everything else is looking good here. Right, we can see now both engines are coming up. Let's switch over to external view. And we can see both engines are starting. All right, and we have a good start on both engines. We are good to go. We're going to turn on the seatbelt passenger seatbelt signs to auto. Everything else here looks good. We no longer need the APU, so we're going to turn the APU off and turn off the APU generators as well. Everything else here is looking good, so we are ready to taxi to the runway. runway turn-off lights and taxi lights are turned on, and we are going to now taxi to runway 23 for departure. Now, I'm not going to be simulating the entire flight, so I'm not going to be recording the entire flight, but I'm going to just show you the probably the more important phases of the flight, which is the takeoff, cruise, and landing. So let's go ahead and release the parking brake now and give it some power. Sounds are reasonable, but in my view, again, for an aircraft with this price tag, I think definitely we need better sounds for sure. And as you can see here, you can see more of the panel work and the texture work, the improvements that they've made in version 1.6, which I think is pretty good. It's a good improvement over the previous versions, but still, to me, this is not a high fidelity, 3D modeling and texture work that warrants the price tag of the aircraft. Again, the sounds still need work. I'm very glad that the developers are committed to the project. This is something I have a lot of appreciation for, and it's very nice to see that this aircraft keeps getting updates and improvements. But it's still, I think, it needs a little more work to be price-worthy in my view. All right, let's turn on the landing lights and the strobes.
On runway
and we are now pretty much ready to go at runway 23. I think you can see now the panel work more clearly, and you can see that definitely a major improvement over the previous versions. All right, here we go. Let's give it some power here, and we'll bring it to about 40%. Stable and toga. And we're going to rotate at V1.
80 knots.
80 knots checked. And we're coming up to V1. V1. And rotate.
Rotate.
Positive rate of climb. Gear is going up. Right, we're just going to pitch down a little bit here to gain some speed. I'm not sure the aircraft is doing what it's supposed to do, but that's fine. Right, let's begin our turn. The auto throttle doesn't seem to be engaged, so we're going to engage it now. And now it seems that the auto throttle is engaged. All right, and we're going to begin retracting the flaps.
1,000.
All right, and let's see. LNAV, VNAV are now engaged. And let's go ahead and turn on the autopilot. So all in all, I think the autopilot, LNAV and VNAV, they work as they should. And now we can see that we are increasing the speed to 250 knots, which is the allowed speed above, or beg your pardon, below 10,000 feet. We can see the throttle is at 107%, and that's because we did not derate or anything like that. All right, and we can now retract the flaps. Welcome back, folks. We are close to the top of descent mark. I'm not exactly sure where the top of descent mark should begin because nothing is shown here. Even if we go to the plan here and change the range a little bit, perhaps this is the top of descent mark, but I'm not exactly sure if that is the case or not. So let's see here. If we increase the range, it could be that this little green dot is the top of descent mark. We're just going to assume that that is the case, and we are approaching the top of descent mark, so we are going to reset the altitude, MCP altitude. Let's go ahead and take a look here at the next page. It looks like there is a vector to Nolan, so we're going to select Nolan and go to the previous page and remove that vector since we don't have ATC running today. And it worked as it should. Of course, this is the default FMC of X-Plane 11, so nothing really special about this FMC. The nice thing is that they've modeled this to look like the 787 FMC. So what we're going to do is we're going to reset the altitude here to 2,200 feet. So that's 200, 2,200. There we go. And all is set, and we should begin the descent. I don't know if we've passed the top of descent point or not, but it looks to me like we have. I'm not exactly sure. It looks like we have, yes. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use flight change, and the aircraft should begin the descent. We hope that it should begin the descent. You can see the throttle is retracting back now, and we can see the aircraft has begun the descent to 2,200. All right, so here's what's happening, ladies and gentlemen. We were cruising at 20,000 feet, and all of a sudden the aircraft decided it wanted to climb for no apparent reason, and now it's stabilizing at 23. And no, it looks like it is descending now again. So we've reset the MCP altitude to 2,200, and if I click on flight change, it doesn't really want to do anything. Keeps want to climb again. All right, so I have no clue what the aircraft is doing at this point. It doesn't seem like we've captured the ILS, and I'm going to go ahead and reduce our speed to 133 or so. Let's see here, 133. And I'm going to go ahead and lower the landing gear. And I'm going to extend flaps 30. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that the runway is that runway right ahead of us right now there. That's the landing runway. But I have no indication that the approach button is working as it should. It could be, I'm not exactly sure. I cannot see the glide slope indicator, but nonetheless, we're doing okay. That's 133, that's the VREF speed. And that is the runway. If I'm not mistaken, we have the gear is currently down, and everything is looking good. Right, I think we are a bit too high now. But again, I have no reference here to know whether that's the case or not. So what we're going to do is we are going to disengage the autopilot, and we're just going to manually land the aircraft. Flight directors are no longer needed. I'll tell you, it's a bit hard moving this aircraft.
Approaching 2 right.
As if it is an A380 or a really heavy aircraft.
500. 400.
Right, I'm gonna go ahead and kill the auto throttle. And reduce the speed. We're coming in a bit too fast.
100. 50. 40. 30. 20. 10.
was a pretty hard landing, and there is a bounce there.
1,005
Well, I'll blame this on
remaining.
my piloting skills.
1,200
All right,
remaining.
there we go. And reversers
900
are
remaining.
out. Well, folks, here are my concluding remarks on the Magknight Boeing 787. Considering the 3D modeling, the texture work, all the improvements that have been brought into the aircraft, the LNAV, VNAV logic issues that I have encountered, and just really in terms of, you know, what does this aircraft bring in terms of value to the flight simmer? In my view, this aircraft at its current price on this specific date is still not a commercially viable product. In my view, it still needs a lot of work. It needs a lot of improvements in order to make it commercially viable. I do, however, believe that the developers are to be commended for their commitment to the project, and I do salute them really for their persistence in you know, keeping this project alive. I would think that a price of you know, a 20s range price would be a fair price for this aircraft at this point, and it would probably be best that it is you know, advertised as an experimental aircraft at this point. I don't believe that it is you know, a study level aircraft by any stretch of the imagination. It is kind of fun if you like to fly experimental aircraft that are not finished, and this, in my view, is not a finished product, and it is not worth $49. That is a very high price to pay for an aircraft of this quality and really lack of features. So this is my concluding remarks. I hope that you've enjoyed this review and found it insightful and useful. If you have any questions, please do post them in the comment section below. Until next time, please take care of yourselves and each other, and I will see you all very soon. Thanks for watching, and bye-bye for now.